Okay, welcome to Dial In. My name is the Acapellist. I am here with my co-host Diane. And Diane, you have got us a lovely guest for this evening. I'm so excited. Why don't you introduce our guest, and then we're going to just enjoy the amazing things she does for the people she helps.
That's right. I would love to introduce my very good friend. That was a gift. She was a gift when she came into our life. Debby Wiedeman, welcome. And I'm so happy that you joined Alan and I for this conversation.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And what actually has been evolving is I was invited onto Alan's show a couple of months ago, and we did a little series on my book, and had conversation. And then from there, decided that there are many wonderful people in our community that we really want to have conversations with because they have lots to offer, strengths, gifts, talents, and there really isn't a forum or an arena for us to find out about these folks. So we thought
sorry to interrupt your introduction, but on the web, on that little banner that's going across the bottom, you see Diane's website. Her book, Could This Be Grace, is available for purchase now. It's been a long time in the making. It's very, we've had a whole series on it. So there's a 6-part series on it that you could have. I think, Diane, we could say complimentary in addition to the book. If they bought the book, we could give them the 6-part series, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
That's not free on YouTube anyway.
Anyway, back to the introduction.
Yes.
Because I wanted to share with Deb and the audience that we started talking about community. Alan's passion is really around the topic of eradicating violence. And he loves the work around the ACEs and trauma-informed practices. And in those conversations, what evolved was me sharing the experience that I had with you. And I shared that you introduced yourself to us in our family as Hope Carrier. And Alan loved that. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about that. He was curious. What does that mean? What does that mean? And I said, why don't I invite the Hope Carrier to join us, and she can share that information and we can have a conversation about that. So that's the introduction. So welcome. And we're thrilled that you're here.
We certainly are. A Hope Carrier. We'll take as many of those as we can, Debbie. So tell us about how you help families. It sounds amazing.
Well, how I help families, I guess the one thing of it is that I think going back, because I've been reflecting on this since Diane asked me to kind of join in on the podcast, because I think, more than ever, the world needs to feel a connection to the hope, right? Because without hope right now, we have darkness. And for myself is that I probably always have always believed in sort of the premise of being hopeful, always having that sort of overarching, I'm always feeling really positive and such. And I think what happened is my curiosity came about is probably about 20 years ago. I was interviewed when primary care started, and I've been working for almost 40 years. So I'm a master in social work. So my education has evolved, and it's always been around sort of helping others. And then what happened was that it was Diana's good friend, Dr. Alan Bailey, interviewed me when primary care was just starting the kickoff, and I was interviewed by a panel of doctors to be the therapist that went to all these doctors' offices in the municipal area. And the question I was asked is, in a very kind of, so what modality do you draw your work from and helping families, and honest to goodness, I was a deer in the headlight, and I just went and I'm like, what modality? I couldn't even think of the meaning of what modality meant at the time, because I was a bit tongue-tied. So what I came out with was the modality that I really draw my practice from is hope. And so the doctors went, hope. Well, we've never heard that theory. We've heard of cognitive behavior therapy. We've heard of solution focused therapy, because that was the buzz at the time, right? CBT, the EMDR, and all of that. And they says, what is this hope? And I was like, holy jumping. I didn't even know if there is such a thing as hope theory, right? Or as a practice. So I had to, so I just had to quickly like go from, ground zero, just to shoot myself up and thinking of, well, if I want this job, you're going to have to dazzle them a little bit, Deb. And I said, for me, I says, I think if without sort of, and I can use the words now because I've researched it, but engendering hope in the other person, if they don't feel that sort of sense of hope, and that I've actually provided sort of a sense of feeling hopelessness, I says, I don't think they'd come back and see me. And they went, oh, so hope really kind of motivates the person. And I said, oh, absolutely. That's the hope theory that I use. And so I had it on pause for the longest time, but it always kind of, it did something within myself that I was always thinking, that I always went to that, and we say it all to ourselves, probably without even knowing, consciously that we're doing that. Like we say, I hope I get there in time. I hope I see that person, or I hope there's not a lineup at the bank. And so we're always saying this hopeful message to ourselves. We're always telling ourselves self-talk of being hopeful. But what happens then is that when I chose to go into my master's level, is that I thought, you know what, that sort of theory that you don't even know if there is a theory of hope theory, you're going to do some unpacking of that and really learn what that is about. And so for me is that, and I want to kind of, I'm going to bounce kind of from back to presence and then to the McConnell family. But the other day I was listening, and of course, every person's heart is broken about the Ukraine and the situation, right? And I was listening to the radio, and the person that was being interviewed and said, well, it was like Pandora's box stayed open. And my heart just stopped, because when I did all that research on hope, what that was is that there's an evolution of where did hope come from. And so it's a kind of a Greek mythology that basically hope was sent down to earth and all the evil was placed inside. And so, and then it just was captured inside. So once the box was closed, the only thing that could come out of it was hope. And that's what kind of kept mankind going, because if not, it would have been destroyed in all the fires and all of that other stuff. So hope is what weaves mankind. So I think no matter what language you speak, or what country you're from, or what culture you believe in, from my background is, my culture that I identify with is the Chinese, there's the Aboriginal, there's Ukrainian, we can go on and on and on. There's always something that sort of, for me, weaves in. So when I heard that the other day, I literally stopped and I said a prayer, and I thought, no, hope, the Pandora's box is not open, and hope is still released, and it will get us through all of this. It is, because hope is what is it, and I see the world now for the Ukrainian people, is that the world are the hope carriers for what is the atrocities that's going on right now. So if I put it on a kind of,
would you feel comfortable doing a prayer right now for the people in the Ukraine?
Oh, I feel very, very comfortable doing that.
Please do.
Yeah. So I would, if we could just really clear our hearts and our minds and our souls right now, and just take a moment. And for me, is that, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The Lord's Prayer is what I'm sure many, many of us are saying on a daily basis, so that will guide and support from the very tiniest things to the to whatever we can do from this side, but that that good is going to overcome the evil in the world. And I really pray for that. I pray for the people. I pray for the president. I've never seen such a strong leader of a country in my life, and I just pray for his safety every day. So I thank you for letting me bring that in. Amen.
Thank you. This is anything that we just that even act, right, of prayer or positive, that we're sending love and hope and safety to the to people on both sides, right? Like Ukrainians, they're the people who are getting, but there's Russian soldiers, they don't want to even be fighting. I'm sure many of them, they got a gun to their head to go and do what they're supposed to do, right? So
excuse me. Go ahead.
Okay.
Got a little cough there. Sorry, guys.
No worries. So, anyways, Hope Carriers, thank you.
Yes.
Love that, and I love that you just kind of made it up and then just went with it, and that's awesome.
So we are right now, and we won't always necessarily be, and that's where the Hope Carrier comes in. Is that when there is folks that I've worked with, and if I bring this back to Diane and Roy and the family, and there was a time where their hope was so depleted that physically, mentally, the system, it's overwhelming, and it's hard to even put one thought in front of the other, never mind one step in front of the other. So I came along, and I think as a Hope Carrier is that you don't have any sort of agenda for how you're going to fix it, like in a solution focused theory. For me is that and I'm just reflecting on this, Diane, is that I went to your house, I knocked on your door, and I said, hi, I'm Debbie, and Diane's probably thinking, I don't know what this person who's been sent to me but can help me, and then I feel that through some practical tools as well, not only just really, really, really empathic listening, but also, providing some knowledge of systems knowledge on how to navigate things, how to advocate for the McConnells, how to bridge communication in a really kind of very, very complicated healthcare system that we have, especially when you're outside of it. It can be very overwhelming, even internally. So it was always that sort of always bridging, because I think with Diane's family is the systems seen it as two entities, like almost like two families, where I saw it as one family, one system, and I need to kind of bring the support so that everybody can understand that we are not talking about Eric and then Ben. We're talking about Eric and Ben and the entire family system. So the time over is that, as a Hope Carrier, is that I hope that what I did is that, first of all, I just listened, and then from there is that they provide, and it sounds somewhat so simple, but this is a process that wasn't rushed. I worked with Diane and Roy for 3 years. Am I right, Diane? Yeah. And so, because lots of times and I have a very unique position in what I do, but you kind of finish one department and off you go and you're starting all over again. Well, that did happen, but the continuity is that, hey guys, I'm here from Debbie. I work with the family. Let me tell you the history, and so that they're not having to retell their story a trillion times, which they did so before that. So I think then there came a time as I think just as the journey with the boys went on as well, and the celebrations and as they continued, is that the strength that I'm not always carrying the family. Like, I gifted it back because, and there was times where it was like, I could hear Diane say, you know what, Deb, I got that now. I can do that. Where, 6 months prior, she wasn't able to kind of have that energy, her and Roy or whatever it may be. And I could see more and more that our contact maybe wasn't as frequent at the end, as we were before, but we certainly did continue to have very, very, I think, regular communication, whether that, and I was very flexible with the family as well. So whether I met at 7 o'clock in the morning at Tim Hortons for a coffee, or, because I think what happens is that when we have folks that have very sort of complicated, complex situations, taking time off work is another burden that a lot of families experience, financial burden, right?
Mhm.
And not all employers allow for that, and or have the ability. So as a hope carrier, it's like, how can I then adapt myself to meet the needs of the family instead of the family adapting themselves to meet the needs of myself as the employee, right? So it was always kind of a go ahead, Diane. Like I felt that I was able to kind of.
I think that not the most, but one of the impactful things about our experience was that the system offers supports and services, and the practical application of those supports and services is unique and different depending on the context that they're being applied to. So in our particular situation, a particular support or service that was being offered didn't always fit, and therefore it didn't have the same kind of impact that it was intended to have because the context wasn't understood, and there wasn't a way to massage or create some fluidity around that. And so a very important thing for me that happened was you asking me the question today, what's getting in the way? What's your greatest need right now? And I know one of the critical times was sleep. We weren't able to sleep. And when we were going through that assessment in terms of how much care did Ben need, that factor didn't kind of factor into it. And it was really critical for me because we were working and I was fearful through the night and he wasn't sleeping and it was like a disaster. And you managed that and got people onto the same page. And we ended up in a place that the practical application of it then worked. So that's really powerful. And I had never experienced that with anything else ever because they would just have this single-sided view.
Yeah, it basically didn't kind of take. I'm kind of likening this to what is often deemed as wrong with our medical system, where a person goes to see a patient goes to see the doctor, and the doctor has 6.5 minutes to write the thing, get the script out the door, kind of a thing, as opposed to a more like a different model where it's not focused on cranking out through so many patients and more focused on kind of understanding the holistic situation that person is in, right? Like all of the things that are affecting their life, right? I kind of, that's sort of what I understand from what you're talking about, Dan. Like the normal, here's the box you got to fit in. Well, you don't fit in that box. And Debbie is somebody who knows how to move through to get those things happening together, right?
Yeah.
Is what if I'm following along, yes?
And I think the one thing is if I bring it back to the hope, is that as the hope carrier is that advocacy is what you bring forward to everybody so that everybody hears sort of, again, the practical sort of application that also includes these other aspects of keeping the family well, isn't just like this. I was even thinking is that almost like the dignity of a family or the dignity of an individual, when you bring hope into that, is that you also, because at the end of the day is that, as I truly believe is that, you get all these other stuff taken away from you, all these possessions and everything like that. And it really comes down to is just being sort of offering dignity to the family and grace, which is, I love the title of your book, because that's all really at the end of the day that I think people want, is that feeling hopeful. I've worked with people in really dire straits, like, no home, significantly impaired by, the addictions and trauma and all of that. But, I've met many people, you know, even under bridges, I've met people and they're soaking wet and, you know, they've been sleeping out all night and such. And so, you know, I asked that question, you know, if there's anything that I could do to bring you hope today, what would that one thing be? And there's someone who went from total despair to, well, if you brought me some dry blankets today, that's all I want. That's all you would want. And I've returned and I brought dry blankets to these individuals. And the shift that you see that hope brings then is that it's called agentic thinking, is that they then in turn said, geez, you know, I got this hope. Hope brings me energy. You know what? Today I'm going to get up and I'm going to change out of these wet clothes. I've got some dry blankets. I'm going to maybe look for better shelter. And it brings sort of that forward thinking, right?
Nice. That's beautiful. Wow.
As opposed to saying,
did you call it adjunctive? What was the word you used?
Could you spell it?
AGEN. It's like agency thinking. So AGENTIC. So,
okay.
So, you know, so you go and you have that sort of forward moving where, you know, that self-talk where you can actually start, because that's how we start building goals for ourselves, right? Is that we think we can do that. So if we can actually do it, we sort of start kind of bringing goals. But if you're not able to do that for whatever reasons at the time, given the circumstances in your life, and another person comes by, doesn't have to be a social worker, can be a good friend or the lady at the coffee shop or whatever, and something at that moment, she carries that hope for you and it shifts what you feel or what you can do within yourself. I think that's been sort of my whole premise. And when I go and I like I've gone into so many different homes and not homes and, you know, people that are doing well, doing poorly. And it all comes down to a feeling of sense of feeling hopeful. And I think that's what I'm hoping to bring today to you guys. Excuse me.
That is beautiful. We did have a couple little, I lost connection with you a little bit. Not my.
Oh,
You just froze.
Internet connection is what I'm trying to say here.
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. I dropped out for a little bit. Sorry. My internet connection dropped out. So I love this. So the question again is, what could I do for you today that would increase your hope? Is that correct? Is that the question?
If there's one thing that I could do today to bring you hope, what would that look like?
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. And so, and you're not saying basically you have to have the official title with your business card from Alberta Health Services.
No.
You're saying that there's other people who can assist in this process of being a hope carrier, correct?
Oh, for sure. We all can. And the world is demonstrating it right now with Ukraine.
Yes, exactly. So Di mentioned this kind of thing. My calling, my soul's purpose is to end violence. And I got to think that's going to be easy. Should only take a couple of weeks or so, I'm thinking, because the people who are experiencing violence obviously don't like experiencing violence, and the people who are using violence don't want to use violence, right? They don't enjoy using violence. It must be another way. So anyways, that's kind of my calling here, and my approach, what I'm thinking so far, is in a similar sense, using connection with people in our community, in our group, in our, the people that we connect with, and being available to be what we've been calling here a system navigator, but it needs to be more than a system navigator. Hope carrier is beautiful, but it's not up to me to make the decision of what we call ourselves. But the purpose being to be available as a preventative, as a support to prevent somebody from experiencing violence. So, that somebody feels comfortable enough in coming forward to say, you tell me that you're one of these, I've been calling them upstanders. I have this upstanders. I love this, upstanders as opposed to bystanders, right? So an upstander type role where you go and say, I want to help. I'm not a professional. I want to help. Tell me what you need, and I'm going to try and assist you, which it's phrased, that's phrased differently. The way that you phrased it is a lot asking it in terms of that, how, in what way could I do for you that's going to be able to increase your hope? That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the one thing of it is that when we look at sort of setting goals for ourselves, or is that, first of all, the goals should come from that the person that you're speaking with, right?
Right.
And then the other thing is that, and if they kind of rattle off 6 or 7 things, and you as the hope carrier kind of go like, well, that's going to have a huge impact on my life. I don't know if I can do it because I've got my own kids, and I've got this,
right.
and I've got that, and so I would say, those are all really important. But if you could prioritize, and if it's realistic, like if it's attainable for me to support that,
right.
What would that be, and what would that look like? And oftentimes then, there's a self-check on that other person that'll do that, is that to say, oh yeah, that sounds crazy. I've been trying to work on that for 20 years and I'm asking you to solve it in 10 minutes. Right. So,
yeah.
So whether it is connecting to, I think that's the biggest thing and I know Diane and Roy said this many times and then the folks that they were close with is the communication piece. Is that always kind of circling back and because, living in a world where you don't have this, I guess at least, virtually we're having a conversation, but when you don't circle back, they just are kind of left, well, then, even feeling less valued than maybe they did even, that's like, or else they lose a sense of hope in that sort of others that really will help them because nobody follows through. Nothing saying that, hey, you know what, I got tied up, I got whatever, but you've circled that back to that person or had to do a recheck. I really tried hard, but is there any, if I can't help you with that, is there something else I can do instead? So it's not necessarily, it's very dynamic, like it's not necessarily always meaning that it's, it goes from this to this to this to this. It's not. It's so fluid, and then you might be staying on something for a little while. But I truly believe is that never make the assumption. And that's, what, I'm going to tell you a story here really quickly. I know I just have a couple of minutes, but
you're good.
This past summer, it was winter, where I was in Arizona visiting actually Rod and Jeannie. And Rod and Jeannie says, hey, do you want to go? There's this amazing, people jump out of the plane all day. The colors in the sky is just like spring flowers coming down at you. I said, wow, that sounds terrific. So we went and drove out there, and we sat on a picnic table, and this old fella beside us, and there was a bunch of seniors. And I know I'm almost a senior, but these were real seniors. Like they were like they're 75 and 80, right? 85. And so they all sat there, and I says, what a lovely day to kind of get out and just join in and watch parachuters come out of the sky, right? And so this one old fella, I don't know, I got talking, and then I was sitting there, and this old fella, he says, well, can I sit on the bench beside you? I says, well, sure. So we got talking, and he was, I think, 86 or something. He says, geez, I'm missing my jump today. I went, what? And he says, well, my whole group is gone. All my buddies and everything. We've been jumping for the last 20 years. I went, you guys aren't here for a picnic? He goes, hell no, we jump out of the plane. I was just like, oh my gosh. And here I'm the one watching them. And he says, yeah, we do how many jumps each? And we're all like, my wife is coming out here. So I had to have some kind of operation on my leg. And he goes, I can spot her when she just comes out of the plane because I know her chute exactly. So we waited for the plane to circle up, and and there he goes. There comes my wife, and there she was. So she was almost 80, not with another person, by themselves, and all these folks coming one by one down on the ground. He says, we know we hear this. How does it go? Live to life. No. Something, I don't know, live your life, don't let your life, or whatever it was. I don't know. You guys know the catchphrase, I'm sure. But the anyways is that when you make assumptions, and that's the thing when we work with people that in hope, don't make the assumptions that they don't have abilities or capabilities. Check it out. Be humbled by what they have to say.
Right. And you, as you said, ask them what it is they want and how you like what would be helpful for them from their perspective and how you can help them get there, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about a little bit between how feeling safe and feeling hopeful, the connection between those two.
Oh, because if you're feeling hopeful, is that, and I think feeling safe is that you're able to get yourself out of a situation and see a goal for yourself to get out of a situation that normally because if you don't feel hope, you feel despair, and if you feel despair, you feel unsafe.
Yeah, I think they're very, very closely intertwined, right? So, that you have to have, if you have one, you have both, kind of a thing, right? Because it's sort of the hope, as you were talking about in Di and Roy in the family situation there, where basically, you were Di and Roy, obviously very smart people, like, that to navigate a complicated system, that would be one thing. But to navigate a complicated system with the intense need that their boys had was just beyond like anything, like beyond the capacity of it's kind of like toxic stress and ACEs, right? Like, where kids can deal with this kind of level of stress, but this level of stress is just beyond their capacity, anybody's capacity to deal with, right? So,
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Cool. Well, that is beautiful. I love Di. I kind of took over here. Sorry. I kind of have a tendency to do that.
That's good. Your opportunity to talk to Deb. I've had opportunity privileged in the past.
Well,
Many.
Debbie, guide me what else I want to move preventative, right? Make it community focused, make a focus on being able and available and knowledgeable enough to be able to guide somebody who's having a challenge in their life to the resources they need, especially to prevent violence from occurring. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, how we mobilize people to make that happen.
Maybe
go ahead, Dan. No,
sounds like a whole topic for a whole new show.
Well, that probably is. Yes, exactly.
Because I think there's really good info there.
Yeah. We're like actually over 30 minutes again. So, Debbie, Di, thanks so much for coming and having this conversation. And to our viewers, thank you for coming and joining us. What happens sometimes, people come on and they make comments on here. We invite them on the show. So you don't have to get invited on the show, but come join us and have a conversation with us. Debbie, it was wonderful to meet you. You're a beautiful human being. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Keep yourself well. See ya.
Thank
See you, Di.
Hey, Di, I want to get your book.
Okay.
Okay, I know. Okay.
I got a few